Now let's do something a little more powerful with our query. Let's find out who is going to be a senior at the end of the semester. We do this all the time at Dominican because registration is based on the class standing we expect you to have at the end of the semester. That means we take the number of credits you've already taken in the past, and we add the number of credits you're enrolled for right now. We expect that you're going to pass them all. And based on that total, that is when you get to register for classes. So if you have 90 or more, you're a senior and you register on the first day of registration. We want to find out who in this list is a senior, and we can't do it with a basic query that we've covered so far because credits taken and credits enrolled are in different columns. We could put criteria under each of them, but really we need to add them together. So I'm going to create a brand new query. And in the past we've seen just double clicking up here or choosing a column from the drop down down here to get what we want. But we'd actually like to do a calculation. And so what we can do is we can write in credits taken, that's one of our columns, plus credits enrolled. And in order to tell it it's from a column in the database, we need to put it in square brackets. Credits taken, you'll notice I've got square brackets around that, plus credits enrolled. And that doesn't really fit in here, so we can do a couple of things. We can stretch this out, and if I put the mouse right up above this and stretch it out, I can make this bigger to see the whole thing I've written in. Sometimes we're going to have really long formulas though, or we're not going to want to stretch every single column out. We can also right click and click zoom, and that's going to pop up a window with our formula in it, and there's a lot of space here, so we can have a really long formula and still see it pretty easily in the zoom window. I'm going to click OK, and I won't add any criteria right now, I'll just run it. And so we have for every student, Charles Carson has a total of 0 credits. He hasn't taken any and he's not enrolled for any. Thomas Barrow has a total of 126. We don't know how many he's taking right now, how many he's taken in the past, but that's enough to tell us that he'll be a senior at the end of the semester if he passes all of his classes. So now let's add the criteria. We only want to include people for whom this is 90 or higher. So we want to say greater than or equal to 90. And now when we run it, we just get the 4 students who we expect to be seniors at the end of the semester. Now you'll notice we've got first name, last name, and EXPR1. That's short for expression 1 because we gave it an expression. We gave it a calculation here, and it needs to give it a name of some kind. And so it just added expression 1. It does that by typing something and putting a colon there. So if we'd like to change the name, let's say expected credits, we can type that in before the colon. When we run it, now it's going to say expected credits up at the top if we give it a little bit more space. So what goes before the colon is just a name. That's just for us, but it's actually really helpful to have that there, particularly because we might end up with queries with 3 or 4 different calculations in them, and we don't want them all to be expression 1, expression 2, and so on. We want to be able to tell easily and quickly what is in that column. And then after the colon, there's our formula. That's how Access calculates what our answer should be here. And then we can have criteria here just like anything else. We'd like the expected credits, those 2 added up. We'd only like people for whom that is greater than or equal to 90 to show up in our results. The formula we used is very simple, just adding up 2 numbers taken from the table, but we can make this very complicated. We can use addition, subtraction, division, multiplication, and we can also make large, complicated formulas as well. But we're not limited just to using numbers. Let's say we'd like to combine some text. So instead of having the first name and the last name in separate columns, we'd really like the student's full name. I'm going to right click and do zoom here so it's a little easier to see the entire formula at once. But I'll put square brackets around first name. Anytime we're doing a formula, I really encourage you to put square brackets around whatever you're taking from the table. Sometimes it's not necessary, but sometimes it is. And rather than trying to keep track of that, it's easier to just always put those square brackets there. We want to add up the first name and the last name. And it's not going to add like numbers, it's going to add here with text. So what it's going to do is put the first name and then the last name right after it. Let's see what that'll look like. It won't be quite what we want. And I deleted there the last name column just by itself. But what we've got now is the name, Thomas Barrow, Daisy Mason, but there's no space here. We'd really like a space as well. So let's go back to Zoom. And we'd like to add in a space. I'm going to put just a space there in quotes. The quotes say that this is text I'd like to directly add in. If we put square brackets, it would be looking for something in the table. Quotes are just text we directly want to put in there. So it'll look up the first name in the table, include that here. Then it'll add a space, and then it'll look up the last name in the table and add it in. And before we close this, let's give this a name. How about full name here? So that when we click OK and run the query, we now have two well-named columns. Full name, Thomas, and a space there, Barrow, and expected credits, 126.